Hello, this is that creepy bald guy, and this is the first part of my review of Suburban Knights. First thing you need to know, this is not that great of a movie. It is very, very faulty, and these points need to be discussed. The second thing you need to know is I don't hate it either. I enjoy it sometimes, I just don't particularly enjoy it as much as I enjoyed Kickassia or the Year One Brawl. So, let's get on with this. Wish me luck. Well, let's break the ice for this review by talking about the shit that nobody really wants to hear talked about when it comes to reviewing a comedy. Critic-y stuff. Like the movie or not, it is a mess. It's low on plot but high on filler, even having at least one subplot that seems to consume a large chunk of an episode before going nowhere. There's no real character development because the only attempt at character development comes way too late in the picture for anyone to care. But if any of you happen to say, "But Marshall, I did care," well, nobody cares about you. Most of the characters are just there for their face value and are largely wasted, although we'll spend more time on that in the next episode. The film has an incredibly awkward tone, especially at the end when things take a turn for the dramatic. I'm not really sure why this didn't work, as I thought Kickassia did it fine with Santa Christ, but it didn't, for whatever reason. The structure is way too loose, being identical to the structure found in Disaster Movie. The difference being is this one is sometimes funny and I never wanted to kill myself. It is at least one step, probably two, actually 10 seems more likely. About 10 steps above Disaster Movie, if that means anything. But both films are just excuses to throw gags together, and they're connected by a thin hair known as the film's plot that often gets buried under one pointless scene after another. In typical That Guy with the Glasses fashion, there are plenty of intentionally poorly choreographed fight scenes, and even more after effects. These were once charming and unique, but are now stale cliches and padding. Too little feels relevant, making the 2-hour runtime frustrating. And the only reason I even talk about any of this stuff is because Kickassia was able to do it. Doug Walker seems to be going through the motions with the comedy, often reusing the same jokes throughout the whole movie. The running gags are not very pleasant, but at the same time, there are still a handful of very funny and amusing moments. Actually, scratch that. I was always amused, but that will be discussed more in the third episode of this review. The film also overuses its meta jokes. Eventually it gets to the point where you start wondering if the nostalgia critic knows this movie isn't as good, so he starts making fun of that point. And it sounds very, very desperate. Walker is more successful as the director than he is as the writer, although the film looks very bland compared to his other works. There are moments of inspired direction. In my Year One Brawl review, I stated that my favorite aspect of Walker's directing in both that and Kickassia is that he perfectly emulates what he is spoofing. He shoots, scores, and edits his films as if they are nothing short of epic, and because the epicness is played for laughs, I find that shit funny. The main reason why I even liked Kickassia is that it feels like a very authentic micro-budget film. Suburban Knights feels like a 2-hour and 8-minute sketch. Because that's really all it is. A handful of sketches that I sometimes found to be funny, sometimes not. It only occasionally struck me as epic. As a sketch, the directing is decent. The action is framed pretty well. I liked its use of music. I liked the different types of camera work. And all in all, it was well edited and stuff like that. Nothing really stood out, but it was all fine. On the downside, though, some of the audio was kind of awkward. You'd have scenes where people walk away, and a voiceover would pretty much be indicating that they're talking, but it just sounds too much like a voiceover. No big deal, but it should, I guess, be mentioned. With that said, luckily, if you do find it funny, none of this crap about structure will matter. What does matter is if you're laughing or not. But if you don't find it funny, this stuff will be painful for you. I sometimes laughed and I sometimes didn't. I think the movie has plenty of good jokes, but they keep reusing the jokes to the point where they cease being funny and start being irritating. But what is most important about Suburban Knights is how the reviewers play their roles. Really, in the long run, we only watch these movies to see them together. So how well do they all do? Well, you're going to have to wait for the next episode. Anyway, the final point I'm going to leave with you is comedy is only as good as its effect on you. My name is Marshall Horror, and I'm here to tell you that those who cannot do, critique.